Hello, students, and welcome to our English class. Today, we are going to explore a truly incredible story. It's a classic tale all about survival, courage, and what it really means to be human when you're faced with impossible challenges. So, let's get started, shall we?
Okay, everyone, please get your textbooks out. We're using our Bliss English textbook for Class 9 from the West Bengal Board. I want you all to turn to page 83. We are looking at Lesson 11, which is an adaptation called A Shipwrecked Sailor. Ready? Let's dive right in.
Now, before we get into any story, it's always a good idea to know a little bit about the person who wrote it, right? The author gives us the first clues about the world we're about to enter. So let's meet the man behind this great adventure.
So, who was this Daniel Defoe? Well, as you can see, he was an English writer and a journalist who lived a long time ago. He's most famous for his novel Robinson Crusoe, and guess what? The story we are reading today is taken from that very book. The text also says he was a prolific and versatile writer. That just means he wrote a huge amount, and on all sorts of different topics. A true master.
Okay, now let's get to the heart of the matter, the story itself. You know, the first few lines of any text are absolutely crucial. They set the mood, the tone, everything. So let's look at them very closely. Just listen to those words from Crusoe himself. Wow. Right away, notice the words he chooses. Miserable and dismal. These two words, they immediately paint a picture of complete and utter hopelessness, don't they?
So let's think about that word for a second. Dismal. What does this word immediately tell us about this new place where poor Crusoe has washed ashore? It certainly doesn't sound like a very nice place for a vacation, does it?
And this brings us to the meaning. Your book's word nest tells us that dismal means desolate. A desolate place is one that is empty, gloomy, and just sad. There's no comfort there. It's a picture of hopelessness from the very first sentence.
In fact, Crusoe was feeling so broken, so lost, that he didn't even give the island a real name. He simply called it the Island of Despair. Just imagine that for a moment, naming your new home Despair. This one small detail tells us everything about his state of mind.
And why was he in such despair? Well, think about his friends, his shipmates who were on the boat with him. How many of them survived the storm? This is the number. 0. Not one. He was completely, utterly alone. Can you even begin to imagine how that must have felt?
So after this terrible realization sinks in, Crusoe has to somehow survive his very first night. And this is where we see him struggling between this overwhelming fear and, believe it or not, a little bit of unexpected good luck. His worries were very real and very scary. He was terrified of being devoured, which means eaten, by wild animals. He had no food, no fresh water, not even proper clothes or a place to sleep. And to make everything worse, it just kept on raining. What a terrible situation.
But then, just when it seems like all hope is lost, he sees something. It's a little glimmer of hope. Through the rain, he spots the wreck of his very own ship. The storm had actually pushed it closer to the shore. And suddenly, that broken ship, it becomes his one and only chance for survival. So he swims out to the wreck and manages to salvage or save whatever he can. He brings back food, some tools like wood and nails, a knife and a gun for protection, even a hammock and some canvas. He also finds ink and paper. But then he finds some money, and you know what he calls it? Useless. It's a fantastic point, isn't it? What good is money when you are alone on a deserted island? It really makes you think about what is truly valuable in life.
Okay, before we go on, let's quickly review a few key words from the text. Understanding these is really important to fully grasp what Crusoe was going through.
So we have 3 key words here. Dismal, as we discussed, means desolate or gloomy. Devoured describes his fear of being eaten quickly and hungrily by some wild beast. And a hammock, of course, is that hanging bed he cleverly managed to salvage from the ship. These are very good words to add to your vocabulary.
And now, for the final, and I think the most important, part of our lesson today. We've read about Crusoe's situation. We've understood his feelings. Now, it's time for us to put ourselves in his shoes.
So, I want you to think about this. You are all alone. The sun is setting. You have a knife, a gun, and a piece of canvas. What is the very first thing you would do to survive the night? Would you try to build a shelter, search for water, maybe climb a tree for safety? You know, there is no single correct answer, but it is a fascinating question to think about. What would your first move be?